The dust storm rolled across the Colorado plains like the devil's own cavalry, turning the afternoon sky the color of dried blood. Ethan Cole squinted through the swirling grit, one hand shielding his eyes while the other gripped the porch rail of his modest ranch house. He'd seen plenty of these storms since settling here after the war, but this one had teeth. "Papa, is it gonna blow us away?" 7-year-old Emily pressed against his leg, her small fingers clutching his worn denim trousers. "No, sweet pea." Ethan scooped her into his arms, feeling her trembling against his chest. "This old house has weathered worse. Your mama and I built it strong." The mention of Margaret still caught in his throat, even 3 years after the fever took her and baby Samuel. Emily didn't remember much about her mother anymore, which was both a mercy and a heartbreak. "Better get inside and help me secure the shutters," he said, setting her down. "Storm's fixing to get worse before it gets better." They'd barely latched the last window when a pounding came at the door. Not the wind, but a human fist, desperate and insistent. Ethan grabbed his rifle from above the mantel, a habit born from years of frontier living where unexpected visitors rarely brought good news. "Who's there?" he called out, gesturing for Emily to stay back. "Please," a woman's voice, barely audible above the howling wind. "I have a baby." Ethan hesitated. Could be a trick he'd heard of bandits using women as bait. But the desperation in that voice, he unbarred the door, keeping his rifle ready. The wind nearly tore the door from his hands as he opened it. A figure stumbled inside a young woman, maybe 25, clutching a bundle to her chest. Her dark hair whipped wildly around a face etched with exhaustion, her dress torn and dust-caked. But it was her eyes that struck him most fierce and proud, despite her obvious distress. "Thank you," she gasped. Then her knees buckled. Ethan caught her with his free arm, kicking the door shut with his boot. The bundle in her arms let out a thin wail, definitely a baby, and a young one at that. "Mama!" Emily cried out, rushing forward before Ethan could stop her. "Mama, you came back!" The words hit him like a physical blow. The woman's eyes widened in confusion as Emily wrapped her arms around the stranger's skirts. "Emily, no!" Ethan set down his rifle and gently pulled his daughter back. "This isn't your mama, sweet pea. This is—" "Clara," the woman supplied, straightening despite her obvious fatigue. "Clara Monroe, and this is Daniel." She adjusted the bundle, revealing a tiny face no more than 3 months old. "She looks like Mama," Emily insisted, her lower lip trembling. "Same pretty hair." Ethan's chest tightened. It was true. Clara's dark hair and delicate features bore an unsettling resemblance to Margaret. But where Margaret had been soft-spoken and gentle, this woman had steel in her spine despite her circumstances. "Let's get you settled," he said gruffly, avoiding his daughter's pleading eyes. "Storm won't let up for hours. You can rest by the fire." Clara nodded, allowing him to guide her to the worn but clean settee near the hearth. She sank down gratefully but kept the baby close, her arms protective even in exhaustion. "Thank you, Mr. Cole, Ethan Cole." He busied himself adding wood to the fire, needing something to do with his hands. "This is Emily." "Pretty names," Clara murmured, then caught herself. I'm sorry to impose. We just needed shelter from the storm." "No imposition," Ethan replied, though the very presence of a woman in his home felt like an intrusion into the careful order he'd built since Margaret's death. Can't turn away a woman and baby in weather like this. Wouldn't be Christian. Emily had crept closer again, fascinated. "Can I see the baby?" Clara's expression softened. "Of course." She carefully pulled back the blanket, revealing Daniel's pink face and wispy blonde hair. "He's so little," Emily breathed. "Was I ever that little, Papa?" "Smaller," Ethan said, remembering how Emily had fit in the crook of his arm. "You were early. Your mama said you were eager to see the world." Clara's gaze sharpened at that, noting the past tense. Her eyes swept the room, taking in the masculine simplicity, the absence of a woman's touch save for a sampler on the wall Margaret's work, though faded now. "Your wife?" she asked carefully. "Fever. 3 years past." The words came out flat, practiced. "I'm sorry for your loss." He nodded, accepting the condolence as he had hundreds of others. "I'll heat some stew. You look like you could use a meal." "That's kind, but—" "No buts about it." He moved toward the kitchen area. "Emily, fetch our guest a clean towel and the wash basin," as his daughter scurried off, eager to help. Ethan couldn't help but notice how Clara held herself straight-backed despite her exhaustion, chin lifted with a pride that seemed at odds with her bedraggled state. No wedding ring on her finger, either, though she had a baby. That would raise eyebrows in town, but it wasn't his business. "You traveling alone?" he asked, ladling stew into bowls. A shadow crossed her face. "Yes." The single word carried weight, a story untold. Ethan didn't press. The frontier was full of people running from something or toward something else. Emily returned with the requested items, then surprised him by carefully helping Clara clean the dust from her face and hands. His daughter had always been tender-hearted, but seeing her fuss over this stranger stirred something uncomfortable in his chest. "There," Emily announced. "Now you're pretty again, just like my mama was." Clara's eyes met Ethan's over the child's head, and he saw understanding there and perhaps a touch of sorrow for a motherless girl seeking connection wherever she could find it. The storm raged on as they ate in relative silence, broken only by Daniel's occasional fussing and Emily's chatter. The little girl had apparently decided Clara was worth befriending, regaling her with stories about the ranch, her pony Buttercup, and her favorite hiding spots. "Emily," Ethan warned when she started describing where he kept the egg money. "Miss Monroe doesn't need to know all our business." "It's all right," Clara said softly. "It's nice to hear a child's voice. Daniel's not much of a conversationalist yet, despite himself." Ethan found his mouth quirking up at that. "Give him time. Emily didn't stop talking once she started." "Papa says I could talk the ears off a cornstalk," Emily announced proudly. "That you could, sweet pea." As the evening wore on, Ethan found himself stealing glances at their unexpected guest. Clara had insisted on helping clear the dishes despite his protests, moving around his kitchen with careful efficiency. When Daniel fussed, she soothed him with a gentle rocking motion and soft humming, not quite a lullaby, but something that made Emily lean against her side, eyes growing heavy. "She needs to get to bed," Ethan said, noting his daughter's drooping eyelids. "I'm not tired," Emily protested, even as she yawned. "I want to stay with Miss Clara." "Miss Clara will be here in the morning," he said, then caught himself. He hadn't meant to make that assumption. Clara looked up from Daniel. If that's acceptable." "I don't want to impose." "But the storm." Through the windows, the dust still swirled thick and violent. No one should be out in that, especially with an infant. "You'll stay," Ethan said firmly. "Take my bed, I'll bunk in here." "I couldn't." "You could and you will. Can't have you sleeping on the floor with a baby." He softened his tone at her stricken look. "It's no trouble. I've slept in worse places." After settling Emily in her small room with promises that Miss Clara would indeed be there come morning, Ethan returned to find Clara standing by the window, Daniel sleeping in her arms as she watched the storm. "It's like the end of the world out there," she murmured. "Just Colorado saying hello," he replied. "You get used to it." She turned to him, and in the lamplight, the resemblance to Margaret was less pronounced. Where his wife had been pretty in a delicate way, Clara had something harder to define, a beauty sharpened by struggle, perhaps. "Mr. Cole, I should tell you." "Tomorrow," he interrupted. "Whatever it is can wait for tomorrow. You're safe here tonight." Her eyes glistened suddenly. "Thank you. We haven't had much kindness lately." The admission hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Ethan cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the intimacy of the moment. "I'll show you to the room." As he led her down the short hallway, Emily's door cracked open. "Miss Clara," the little girl whispered. "Will you really be here tomorrow?" Clara shifted Daniel to one arm and reached out to touch Emily's cheek. "I promise, sweetheart." Emily beamed and retreated back to bed. Ethan felt something twist in his chest at the gesture, such a simple thing, but it had been so long since a woman's gentle touch had graced this house. "She's a treasure," Clara said softly as they reached his bedroom door. "She is that." Ethan lit the lamp on the dresser, illuminating the sparse room. "There are clean sheets in the chest, if you need anything." "We'll be fine." She hesitated. "Mr. Cole, I want you to know I'm not what some people might think. Daniel's father. It's complicated, but I'm not." "Miss Monroe." He turned to face her fully. "Whatever brought you to my door in a dust storm with a baby and no ring is your business. You're under my roof now, and that makes you my responsibility tonight. Nothing more needs saying." Relief washed over her features. "You're a good man, Ethan Cole," he grunted, uncomfortable with the praise. "Just a man trying to raise his daughter right. Get some rest." As he settled onto the settee with a blanket, Ethan listened to the storm rage outside and the soft sounds of Clara settling Daniel in the bedroom. For the first time in 3 years, his house didn't feel empty, and that terrified him more than any dust storm ever could. Tomorrow would bring questions: who was Clara Monroe, and what was she running from? Why did she look at Daniel sometimes with such fierce protection that it bordered on fear? And why did Emily's instant attachment to her make his heart ache with possibilities he'd sworn off when he'd buried Margaret? But tonight, with the wind howling and the dust painting the world brown, tonight there was just a man, a woman, and 2 children sheltered against the storm. Sometimes, Ethan thought as sleep finally claimed him, that was enough. The morning sun painted the kitchen golden as Clara kneaded bread dough, her sleeves rolled up to reveal slender but capable arms. It had been 2 weeks since the storm delivered her to Ethan's doorstep, and somehow she'd simply stayed. "You don't have to do that," Ethan said for the 100th time, entering from the morning chores. "I know." Clara didn't look up from her work. "But idle hands make me restless. Besides, Emily asked for biscuits." As if summoned, Emily burst through the door, pigtails flying. "Miss Clara Daniel's awake. Can I hold him?" "After you wash your hands," Clara said automatically, then caught herself, glancing at Ethan. "If your father approves, of course." Ethan nodded, watching his daughter race to the wash basin. In 2 weeks, Clara had brought more order and warmth to their home than he'd managed in 3 years. The house smelled of fresh bread and soap. Emily's hair was properly braided each morning, and Daniel's gurgling laughter filled the empty spaces. "She's natural with children," he observed. Clara's hands stilled briefly. "I helped raise my younger siblings before—" She trailed off, returning to her kneading with renewed vigor. Before, always before. Never the full story. Ethan didn't push, though curiosity gnawed at him. Emily returned, hands still damp, and Clara settled her in the rocking chair with Daniel. The baby grabbed at Emily's finger, making her giggle. "He likes me, Papa." "Course he does, sweet pea." Clara shaped the dough into biscuits, her movements efficient yet graceful. Ethan found himself watching the way morning light caught in her dark hair, now clean and pinned properly. She'd mended her torn dress with neat stitches and fashioned a sling for Daniel from an old shirt of his. Making do. Making things better, it reminded him of Margaret. Yet Clara was entirely her own person. "I thought we might go to town today," he said carefully. "Need supplies. Clara's shoulders tensed.
All of us.
Would do Emily good to play with other children. And you need proper clothes if you're staying. He paused, realizing what he'd implied. Am I staying? Clara turned to face him, flour dusting her apron. We've been imposing on your hospitality. You've been earning your keep and then some. The words came out rougher than intended. House hasn't run this smooth since. He stopped, but they both knew what he meant. A moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities.
I should get Daniel ready,
Clara said softly, breaking the spell. The ride to Redemption Creek took an hour in the wagon. Emily chattered excitedly between Clara and Ethan on the bench seat, Daniel secure in Clara's arms. To any passerby, they might have looked like a family, and the thought made Ethan's chest tight. He noticed Clara pulling her shawl higher as they entered town, her chin lifting in that way he'd come to recognize as armor against the world.
General store first,
he announced, pulling up to Garrison's Mercantile. The bell chimed as they entered, and conversation stuttered to a halt. Mrs. Garrison's eyebrows climbed toward her hairline as she took in their group. Ethan Cole, she said slowly, and guests. Morning, Martha. This is Miss Monroe and her boy Daniel. They're staying out at the ranch. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ethan saw Martha's gaze fix on Clara's bare ring finger, then drift to Daniel. I see. 2 words, loaded like a shotgun. Clara's spine straightened further, but she kept her voice pleasant. Good morning, Mrs. Garrison. What lovely fabric you have displayed. Martha's mouth pursed. That silk's quite dear. Perhaps the calico would be more suitable. The insult was clear. Ethan opened his mouth, but Clara spoke first. Actually, I was admiring it for Emily. Don't you think the blue would bring out her eyes? She smiled down at Emily, who beamed back. Oh yes, Miss Clara, could I have a dress from it? Papa, please. Trapped between his daughter's enthusiasm and Martha's disapproval, Ethan nodded. If Miss Clara says it's suitable. They gathered supplies with painful awareness of whispers following them. Clara selected modest fabric for herself, practical brown wool that Martha couldn't object to, and helped Emily pick ribbons. Through it all, she maintained a dignity that made the gossip stares seem petty. Let's get these loaded, Ethan said, eager to escape the store's confines. Outside, they nearly collided with Abigail Thornton, the banker's wife and Redemption Creek's self-appointed moral guardian. Her eyes narrowed as she took in Clara holding Daniel. Ethan, she said coolly. Then her gaze slid to Clara like oil. I don't believe we've met. Clara Monroe, Clara said evenly. Monroe. Abigail rolled the name around like she was tasting something bitter. Not from around here. Are you? We'd remember. No, ma'am. And yet here you are, staying with our poor widowed Ethan. Abigail's smile could have curdled milk. How charitable of him. Emily, oblivious to the undercurrents, piped up. Miss Clara makes the best biscuits, and she's teaching me to read better. Is she now? Abigail's attention sharpened. How wonderful that she's so accomplished. Tell me, Miss Monroe, where did you say your husband was? Clara's knuckles whitened where she held Daniel, but her voice remained steady. I didn't say. No, Abigail agreed silkily. You didn't. Mrs. Thornton, Ethan interrupted, his tone carrying warning. If you'll excuse us, we have errands to finish. Of course. Abigail stepped aside with exaggerated courtesy. Do be careful. Ethan, you have your reputation to think of, and dear little Emily's. The threat hung in the air as she swept away. Clara stood frozen, color draining from her face. Miss Clara, Emily tugged at her skirt. Why was that lady so mean? Some people just are. Sweet pea. Ethan said grimly. Come on. They finished their errands in tense silence. At the feed store, Tom Bradley pulled Ethan aside while his wife Mary chatted with Clara. That the woman folks are talking about? Tom asked quietly. Folks should mind their own business. Tom raised his hands. Just saying, Ethan, you've kept to yourself since Margaret passed. Now suddenly there's a woman with a baby and no ring living in your house. People are gonna talk. Let them. It's not just you anymore. Friend, that little girl of yours needs a decent reputation to grow up with. Ethan's jaw clenched. Clara Monroe is a decent woman in hard circumstances. Anyone says otherwise answers to me. Tom studied him. Like that, is it? It's like nothing. I'm offering Christian charity to someone who needs it. Mary and I stayed at each other's homes for Christian charity, too, Tom said with a wry smile. Ended up married 20 years now. Ethan stalked away without answering, but Tom's words echoed in his head. The ride home was subdued. Emily dozed against Clara's shoulder while Daniel fussed quietly. Clara stared at the passing landscape. Her expression closed. I should leave, she said suddenly. What? You heard them. My presence is damaging your reputation. Emily's reputation. Emily's reputation is just fine. For now. Clara's voice was thick. But what happens when she's older? When young men come calling and their mothers whisper about the fallen woman who lived in her home? Ethan pulled the wagon to a stop. Clara, look at me. She did, reluctantly, and he saw tears threatening. You're not fallen. You're not any of the words they didn't quite say. You're a good woman doing her best for her child. And anyone who can't see that isn't worth knowing. You don't know. I know enough. He gentled his voice. I know you sing to Daniel when he can't sleep. I know you've taught Emily more about letters in 2 weeks than I managed in months. I know you work harder than any 2 people and never complain. That's not. I know you're running from something or someone, and I don't care. The admission surprised them both. Whatever it is, you're under my protection now. Clara's tears spilled over. You can't fight the whole town for us. Watch me. She laughed wetly. You're a fool, Ethan Cole. Been called worse. Emily stirred. Are we home, Miss Clara? Why are you crying? Happy tears, sweetheart, Clara said, wiping her cheeks. Just happy tears. That evening, after Emily was in bed, Clara and Ethan sat by the fire. Daniel slept in Clara's arms, making small snuffling sounds. His father, Clara began quietly. Lucas Tate, I thought he loved me. He promised marriage, a home, children. I believed him. Ethan stayed silent, letting her speak. When I told him about Daniel, he laughed, said I was a fool to think he'd marry beneath him. His father owned half the county back in Missouri. Her voice hardened. He offered to keep me, set me up somewhere discreet. When I refused, he said he'd take the baby when it came. Said no court would give a child to an unwed mother over a respectable family. So you ran? So I ran. She pressed a kiss to Daniel's head. I'd heard Colorado was different, that people could start over. I didn't expect. She gestured helplessly. People are people everywhere. Ethan said, good and bad mixed together. I'll understand if you want us to leave now that you know. Ethan stood abruptly, moving to the mantel. Above it hung Margaret's sampler, Love Bears All Things. My wife stitched that our first year married, he said. I was dirt poor, trying to build this place up. Her family said she was wasting herself on me. But Margaret, she just smiled and said love was worth more than their approval. He turned back to Clara. She was right. It was, and I won't dishonor her memory by turning away someone who needs help because of what gossips might say. Clara's eyes shimmered in the firelight. She was a lucky woman. I was the lucky one. He returned to his chair. You'll stay, long as you need. The talk will get worse. Then we'll face it together. The words came out before he could stop them, hanging in the air with promise. Clara studied him for a long moment.
All right,
She whispered.
we'll stay.
Outside, coyotes called to each other across the dark prairie. Inside, the fire crackled warmly, and for the first time in years, Ethan's house felt like a home. Whatever storms came next from nature or neighbors, they'd weather them together. The coughing started just after midnight. Ethan jolted awake to the sound of Emily's labored breathing echoing through the thin walls. He was at her bedside in seconds, his heart hammering as he felt her burning forehead.
Papa,
Emily's voice was barely a whisper between harsh, barking coughs.
my throat hurts.
I know, sweet pea, Papa's here. But fear clawed at his chest. He'd heard that cough before croup. They called it the same illness that had weakened baby Samuel before the fever took him. Clara appeared in the doorway, Daniel in her arms, her hair loose around her shoulders. She took one look at Emily and thrust the baby at Ethan.
Hold him. I need hot water. All the clean cloths you have.
And your sharpest knife. Knife. For steam. Trust me. She was already moving, lighting lamps with steady hands. Have you any camphor eucalyptus? In the medicine box, top shelf. Ethan watched, feeling helpless as Clara transformed into someone he'd never seen, efficient, commanding, utterly focused. She set water to boil, created a tent with blankets over Emily's bed, and began dripping eucalyptus oil into the steaming pot.
Breathe, sweetheart.
Clara crooned to Emily.
Nice and slow. The steam will help.
Emily's coughing continued, each bark tearing at Ethan's soul. Memories of Samuel's final night crashed over him, the helplessness, Margaret's tears, the tiny coffin.
She's getting worse, he said roughly. I should ride for Doc Morrison.
In the dark, it's 15 miles to town. Clara didn't look up from where she was applying warm compresses to Emily's throat. By the time you got back... She didn't finish, but they both knew. Emily's breathing was becoming more strained, her lips taking on a bluish tinge that made Ethan's blood run cold. There's another way, Clara said quietly. But you have to trust me. Anything. Clara positioned Emily upright in her arms. I'm going to open her throat passage. My grandmother taught me she was a healer back in Tennessee, but it looks frightening.
Do it!
Clara tilted Emily's head back, using her fingers to massage specific points on the child's throat while humming a low, steady note. Emily struggled weakly, panic in her eyes.
Papa,
she gasped. Ethan knelt beside them, taking Emily's small hand. I'm here, baby. Miss Clara's helping. Be brave for me. Clara's humming grew louder, almost a vibration, while her fingers worked. Then, suddenly, she tipped Emily forward and delivered 3 sharp pats between her shoulder blades. Emily convulsed, coughing so violently Ethan nearly pulled her away. But then, miracle of miracles, she drew in a deep, clear breath. The blue tinge faded from her lips as she gulped air. That's it, Clara soothed, rubbing Emily's back as the child continued to breathe more easily. Good girl. You're so brave. Emily clung to Clara, sobbing with relief and exhaustion. Ethan realized his own cheeks were wet. He'd been so certain he was about to lose her, just like Samuel, just like Margaret. The crisis is past, Clara said softly. But we need to keep the steam going all night. She'll cough more, but listen, it's productive now. Not that terrible bark. She was right. Emily's coughs now brought up phlegm, clearing her airways. Within an hour, she was sleeping fitfully against Clara's chest, her breathing still raspy but no longer desperate. You can put Daniel in his cradle, Clara said. I'll stay with her. Ethan looked down, having forgotten he still held the baby. Daniel gazed up at him with solemn blue eyes, one tiny fist wrapped around Ethan's thumb. I'll bring a chair, Ethan said hoarsely. We'll take shifts. No need.
I've done this before."
At his questioning look, she explained, "My youngest brother had weak lungs. Many nights like this. But Ethan fetched the chair anyway, unwilling to leave his daughter. They sat vigil together through the dark hours, Clara holding Emily while Ethan kept the steam going and Daniel slept in his cradle nearby. Where did you learn that?" Ethan asked quietly. "What you did with your hands?" "My grandmother was Cherokee," Clara said, a note of defiance in her voice as if expecting judgment. "She married a white man, but she kept the old ways, taught them to me before she passed." "Thank God she did." Clara looked at him in surprise. "Most people would, that is, they don't approve of Indian ways." Most people didn't just watch those Indian ways save their daughter's life. They lapsed into comfortable silence, broken only by Emily's occasional coughs and the hiss of steam. As dawn approached, Emily's breathing had eased considerably, though she remained feverish. "She needs willow bark tea," Clara murmured, smoothing Emily's damp hair. "And rest, lots of rest." "You saved her." The words came out raw. "Clara, you saved my little girl." "We're not through it yet," Clara warned, but her eyes were gentle. "These things can turn bad again quickly." "But she's breathing. She's alive." Ethan's voice broke. "When Samuel got sick, we couldn't— Margaret and I, we tried everything, but he just slipped away. And then Margaret, she was so weak from grief. When the fever came—" "Ethan?" Clara reached across Emily to touch his hand. "You couldn't have changed what happened. Sometimes, despite all our love, all our efforts, we lose people. It's not your fault." He gripped her hand like a lifeline. "I was so sure I was going to lose Emily too, when I heard that cough." "But you didn't. She's strong, like her father." Clara squeezed gently before withdrawing her hand. "And stubborn. That helps." Ethan managed a weak chuckle. Gets that from both sides. As the sun painted the room gold, Emily stirred. "Papa, Miss Clara." "Right here, sweet pea." Emily's eyes, though glassy with fever, were aware. "I dreamed Mama was holding me, but then I woke up and it was Miss Clara." She frowned slightly. "Is that bad to forget Mama?" Clara and Ethan exchanged glances over her head. "No, baby," Ethan said gently. "Your mama would be happy to know Miss Clara was taking care of you. That's what mamas do. They send angels to watch over their babies when they can't be there." "Is Miss Clara an angel?" "Something like that," Ethan murmured, meeting Clara's eyes in the morning light, with Emily safe in her arms. She looked exactly like one. The next days blurred together. Clara never left Emily's side except to tend Daniel, sleeping in the chair when exhaustion claimed her. Ethan took over household duties with clumsy determination, burning breakfast and struggling with laundry while Clara coached him through Emily's care. Tom Bradley stopped by with supplies from town, taking in the domestic chaos with raised eyebrows. "Heard Emily was sick." "She's recovering," Ethan said shortly, not inviting him in. "Doc Morrison said he'd come by, but Clara Miss Monroe said to tell him we had it handled." Tom's expression was carefully neutral. "That's good. Mary sent soup and bread. She said to tell Miss Monroe she's praying for Emily." "Thank her for us." Tom hesitated. "Ethan, folks are talking more than ever. You got that woman playing nursemaid to your daughter, living in your house." "That woman saved Emily's life," Ethan said flatly. "Anyone has a problem with that can take it up with me directly." After Tom left, Ethan found Clara had heard the exchange. She was sitting beside Emily's bed, teaching her string games to pass the time. "He's right," Clara said without looking up. "People are talking. Let them talk themselves hoarse." Ethan— "No." He crouched beside the bed, including Emily in his gaze. "This family doesn't turn its back on people who help us." "Right, sweet pea." "Right, Papa. Besides, Miss Clara promised to teach me to make her special biscuits when I'm better." Clara's eyes glistened. Did I? Well, if you didn't, you should, Emily said with 7-year-old logic. Because I love you. The simple declaration hung in the air. Clara's hand trembled as she smoothed Emily's hair. I love you too, sweetheart, she whispered. Ethan stood abruptly, his chest too full of emotions he wasn't ready to name. I'll check on the stock. But as he reached the door, Clara's voice stopped him. Ethan, thank you for letting us stay, for trusting me with her. He turned back to see her watching him with those dark eyes that seemed to see right through him. It's me who should thank you, he said roughly. You gave me back my daughter. You gave her back her future. Something shifted between them in that moment, some invisible wall crumbling. Ethan fled to the barn before he could do something foolish like cross the room and pull her into his arms. That night, with Emily finally sleeping peacefully and the crisis truly past, Ethan found Clara on the porch, Daniel in her arms as she watched the stars. Couldn't sleep, he asked, joining her on the bench Margaret had loved. Too much nervous energy still. She shifted Daniel to her shoulder. I keep checking on Emily every few minutes. Natural enough, I've been doing the same. They sat in comfortable silence, crickets chirping their night songs. What you said before, Clara began softly. About Margaret sending an angel. Did you mean it? Ethan considered his words carefully. Margaret always said God provides what we need when we need it. That night in the storm, Emily and I needed you. Maybe that's not exactly angels, but it's close enough for me. Clara ducked her head, but not before he saw her smile. They sent me a fading bride once, she murmured, so softly he almost missed it. What? Something my grandmother used to say, about how love finds us when we're at our lowest, almost fading away. She said the strongest love comes from two people saving each other. Ethan's heart pounded as she looked up at him, moonlight painting her features silver. Clara. That kiss, she whispered. Not a real kiss, just Emily's kiss on my cheek when she said she loved me, but it made me realize something. I've been running so long, I forgot what it felt like to belong somewhere, to have someone need me for more than just survival. We do need you, Ethan said hoarsely, both of us. And I need you, both of you. She stood carefully, cradling Daniel. But I won't be the cause of harm to this family. If staying hurts Emily's future, the only thing that would hurt Emily is losing you now. The words tumbled out, unstoppable. Don't you see, you're not just some woman we're sheltering anymore. You're... He stopped, afraid to say too much. I'm what? You're home, he said simply. You and Daniel, you're home. Clara's breath hitched, then, balancing Daniel carefully, she leaned down and pressed her lips softly to Ethan's forehead. Not quite the kiss of a lover, but far more than the kiss of a friend. Thank you, she whispered against his skin, for giving us a home, for making me believe in love beyond eternity. Then she was gone, slipping inside with Daniel, leaving Ethan alone with the stars and a heart so full it ached. He touched the spot where her lips had been, feeling the warmth linger like a promise. Maybe Margaret had sent an angel after all, and maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop simply surviving and start living again. Inside, he heard Clara humming softly to Daniel, the same healing tune that had saved Emily. The sound wrapped around him like an embrace, like coming home after a long, cold journey. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The town gossips wouldn't rest. And somewhere out there, Lucas Tate might still be searching for Clara and Daniel. But tonight, his daughter slept peacefully, saved by a woman's courage and ancient wisdom. Tonight, his home held laughter again. Tonight, for the first time in 3 years, Ethan Cole dared to hope. The acrid smell of smoke pulled Ethan from sleep before he heard the crackling flames. He bolted upright, instantly alert, a skill learned from years of frontier living where danger rarely announced itself politely. Fire! He shouted. Racing from the house, the barn was ablaze, orange flames licking hungrily at the dry timber. Clara appeared at his side. Emily clutched in her arms. "Take her," she said, thrusting the frightened child at him. "I'll get the horses out." "No, it's too dangerous." But Clara was already running, her nightgown billowing behind her. Ethan cursed, settling Emily safely away from the building. "Stay here, Sweet Pea. Don't move." He raced after Clara, finding her struggling with the terrified horses. Together they managed to lead Buttercup and his workhorses to safety, the animals whinnying in panic as burning debris fell around them. "That's all of them," Clara gasped, her face streaked with soot. They stood watching helplessly as the barn collapsed in a shower of sparks. Months of hay. His tools, the new plow he'd saved for all consumed in minutes. "Papa, why is our barn burning?" Emily's voice was small, scared. Before Ethan could answer, hoofbeats thundered up the drive. Tom Bradley and several neighbors had seen the flames. They formed a bucket brigade, but it was too late for the barn. They focused on keeping the fire from spreading to the house. As dawn broke over the smoking ruins, Ethan surveyed the damage with grim eyes. Without the barn, without hay for winter, the ranch would struggle to survive. "Ethan," Tom approached, his face grave. "We need to talk about how this started." Lightning, maybe though there was no storm, wasn't lightning. Tom held up a charred oil lamp. "Found this near where the fire started. Still smells of kerosene." Ethan's blood ran cold. "You're saying someone did this deliberately?" "I'm saying you might want to ask yourself who'd want to send you a message." Tom's eyes flicked meaningfully toward Clara, who was comforting Emily nearby. "Don't!" Ethan's voice was dangerous. "Don't even suggest." "I'm not suggesting anything, but Widow Thornton mentioned seeing a stranger in town yesterday. Well-dressed fellow, asking questions about a woman and baby. Said he was looking for his wife who'd run off confused after childbirth." Clara, who'd been approaching with water for the firefighters, went rigid. The cup slipped from her hands, shattering on the ground. Clara Ethan moved to her side. "He found me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Lucas found me." Tom looked between them. "This Lucas fellow, he the type to burn a man's barn?" "He's the type to do whatever it takes to get what he wants," Clara said flatly. "And he wants Daniel over my dead body." Ethan growled. "That can be arranged." They all spun toward the voice. A man stood at the edge of the yard, immaculate despite the early hour. Tall, handsome in a polished way that spoke of money and privilege. His smile was cold as winter frost. "Hello, Clara," Lucas Tate said pleasantly. "You've led me quite a chase." Clara instinctively moved closer to Ethan. "Lucas, is this the farmer you've taken up with?" Lucas's eyes raked dismissively over Ethan. "Rather a step down from what I offered you, isn't it?" "Mr. Cole saved our lives," Clara said with quiet dignity. "That makes him worth a dozen of you." Lucas's pleasant mask slipped. "Careful, my dear. You're hardly in a position to insult me, not when I've come to collect my son." "Our son, and you'll not take him." "Won't I?" Lucas pulled out a folded paper. "Judge Morrison seemed to think differently. Custody order, signed and sealed. Seems courts favor legitimate fathers over unwed mothers of questionable character." "You're not taking Daniel," Ethan said, stepping forward. Lucas barely glanced at him. "This doesn't concern you, farmer, though I must thank you for keeping them in one place. Made them easier to find." His smile sharpened. "Shame about your barn? These frontier buildings, so flammable." Ethan's fist connected with Lucas's jaw before anyone could react. The man stumbled back, his hand coming away bloody from his split lip. "Papa, no!" Emily cried out, breaking free from Mary Bradley to run to Ethan. Lucas straightened, his eyes glittering dangerously. "Assault, in front of witnesses. This gets better and better." He turned to Tom and the others. "You all saw that, didn't you? This violent man attacked me unprovoked while I was simply trying to retrieve my son through legal channels."
"Didn't see a thing," Tom said flatly.
"Me neither," agreed Will Patterson. "Smoke got in my eyes," added Ben Harper. Lucas's face darkened. "I see how it is, protecting your own." He dabbed at his lip with a handkerchief. "No matter. Clara, you have until tomorrow noon to bring my son to the hotel in town. If you don't, I'll return with the sheriff and a posse if necessary. And your farmer friend here might find more than his barn burning." "You threatening me?" Ethan demanded. "Merely observing how dangerous frontier life can be. Accidents happen all the time. To men, to little girls." His gaze lingered on Emily, and Clara made a sound like a wounded animal. "Get off my land," Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet. "Now." Lucas tipped his hat mockingly. "Until tomorrow. Clara, don't make this harder than necessary." After he left, Clara sank to her knees, pulling Emily into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I brought this to your door." "Stop that." Ethan knelt beside them. "You didn't bring anything. That man's evil is his own doing." "But the barn is just wood and nails. Can be rebuilt." Tom cleared his throat. "Ethan's right. And speaking of rebuilding, I'll spread the word. Barn raising this Saturday if this mess gets sorted." The other men nodded agreement, and Ethan felt his throat tighten at their support. After they left, he found Clara packing her few possessions, Daniel fussing in his cradle. "What are you doing?" "Leaving." She didn't look at him. "If I go now, maybe Lucas will follow me and leave you be." "And let him catch you on the road alone." Ethan caught her hands, stilling them. "Clara, stop. He'll destroy you. Everything you've built. He already started with the barn." "Let him try." When she shook her head, Ethan gripped her shoulders gently. "Clara, look at me. I've survived war, drought, locusts, and losing my wife. You think one pompous peacock from Missouri scares me? He has the law. He has a piece of paper from a judge he probably paid off. This is Colorado, not Missouri. Things work different here." "But Emily," Clara's voice broke. "You heard him threaten her. Which is why you're not running. We face this together, or he wins." Ethan gentled his voice. "Trust me. Please." Clara searched his face, then slowly nodded. Emily, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet, tugged on Clara's skirt. "Miss Clara, that mean man can't take Daniel away, can he? He's our baby." The simple claim undid Clara completely. She pulled Emily close, tears streaming down her face. That evening, Ethan rode to town alone despite Clara's protests. He found Judge Morrison at his home, just sitting down to dinner. "Ethan," the judge said warily. "Heard you had some trouble." "Need to ask you about a custody order you supposedly signed." Morrison's face darkened. "I signed no such thing. Haven't had a custody case in months." "So Lucas Tate's lying." Lucas Tate Morrison set down his fork. Tall fellow, smooth talker. "He was in my office yesterday. True enough. Wanted me to sign papers without proper documentation. I sent him packing." "Would you swear to that in court?" "I'd swear to it in church if necessary. Don't like men who try to buy justice." Ethan's next stop was Sheriff Watson's office. He found the lawman cleaning his rifle, looking troubled. "Expecting trouble, Jim." Watson looked up. "Ethan, yeah, might say that. Had an interesting visitor today. Tried to hire me to enforce a custody order tomorrow. Offered a substantial bonus for my trouble." "What'd you tell him?" "Told him to take his bonus and his forged papers and get out of my town." Watson set the rifle aside. "Known you since you settled here. Ethan, you're good people. This woman you took in, she the baby's mother?" "She is." "And this Tate fellow's the father?" "By blood only. He abandoned them. Threatened to take the baby if Clara didn't become his mistress. Watson's face hardened. That's so well. Seems to me a man who abandons a woman and child's got no claim on either, paper or no paper. So if he shows up tomorrow demanding you enforce his order, I'll tell him what I told him today, get out of my town. Relief flooded through Ethan. Thanks, Jim. Don't thank me yet. Men like Tate don't give up easy. Watch your back. When Ethan returned home, he found Clara in the kitchen, mechanically preparing dinner while Emily played with Daniel on a blanket nearby. The domestic scene made his heart ache with how right it felt, how much he stood to lose if Lucas succeeded. Judge Morrison never signed any papers, he announced. Clara spun around. What? The custody order is fake. Sheriff Watson already sent him packing once. Ethan crossed to her, taking her flour-dusted hands. Lucas has no legal claim here. But he won't stop. You don't know him like I do. He can't stand losing, especially to someone he considers beneath him. Then we make sure he loses so thoroughly he has no choice but to accept it. How? Ethan took a deep breath. This was the moment he'd been building toward all day. The solution that had crystallized as he'd watched his barn burn. Marry me. Clara's hands went slack in his. Ethan? Not just for protection, he said quickly. Though that's part of it. A husband's claim beats an unwed father's, even in Missouri. But Clara, he drew her closer. These weeks with you and Daniel, they've brought this house back to life. Emily loves you. He swallowed hard. I care for you, more than care. You still love Margaret. I do. Part of me always will. But that doesn't mean my heart can't hold new love, too. He touched her face gently. Margaret would want me happy. Would want Emily to have a mother. And I can't think of anyone I'd rather build a life with than you. Clara's eyes searched his. You'd take on my troubles, my past raise another man's son. Daniel would be my son in every way that counts, just like you'd be Emily's mother. He managed a crooked smile. We're already a family. Clara, this would just make it official. People will talk more than ever. Say I trapped you, that I'm a scheming... Let them talk until their tongues fall out. I know who you are. He pressed his forehead to hers. Say yes. Clara, choose us. For a long moment, she was silent. Then, soft as a prayer, yes. Emily, who'd been pretending not to listen, let out a whoop. Miss Clara's gonna be my mama. They laughed, the tension breaking as Emily bounced excitedly. Guess that settles it, Ethan said, pulling Clara close while Emily danced around them. Tomorrow, instead of meeting Lucas, we'll be standing before Reverend Harper. He'll come for us after. Let him come. Ethan's voice was steel. He'll find out what happens when someone threatens my family. That night, as Clara tucked Emily into bed, the little girl asked, Miss Clara, should I call you Mama now? Clara's breath hitched. Only if you want to, sweetheart. Emily considered this seriously. I think yes. Papa says Mama Margaret sent you to us, so it's like having two mamas, one in heaven watching over me, and one here to hug me. Oh, Emily. Clara gathered her close. I would be honored to be your mama here. Later, Ethan found Clara on the porch again, her familiar refuge when emotions overwhelmed her. Second thoughts, he asked quietly. No. She turned to him, moonlight silvering her tears. Just thinking how strange life is. I ran from Lucas to protect Daniel, convinced I'd spend my life alone and running. Instead, I found a home, a family, a man who... She stopped, shy suddenly. A man who loves you, Ethan finished. Because I do. Clara, maybe it happened fast. Maybe it's not the storybook courtship you deserved, but it's real. I love you too, she whispered. You and Emily both. You gave me hope when I had none left. He pulled her into his arms, and this time when she kissed him, It wasn't on the forehead, but full on the lips, a kiss that tasted of promises and new beginnings. From inside came Daniel's cry, and they broke apart, laughing.
"Our son needs us,"
Ethan said, testing the words. "Our son," Clara repeated, wonder in her voice. "Our family." Together they went inside to comfort Daniel, united now against whatever tomorrow might bring. Lucas Tate had burned their barn, but from those ashes something stronger had risen, a love that would not yield, a family that would not break. And somewhere in heaven, Ethan liked to think Margaret was smiling, knowing her family was complete at last. The morning sun streamed through the chapel windows as Clara stood before the small mirror in the vestry, adjusting the simple cream-colored dress Mary Bradley had insisted on lending her. It wasn't white that would have caused even more talk, but it was clean and pretty, with delicate lace at the collar that Emily kept touching with reverent fingers. "You look beautiful, Mama Clara," Emily breathed, already trying out the new name. "Thank you, sweetheart." Clara's hands trembled slightly as she pinned a small cluster of wildflowers in her hair, Emily's contribution. Picked fresh that morning. A knock came at the door. 5 minutes, Tom Bradley called. 5 minutes until she became Ethan's wife. 5 minutes until Lucas's threats lost their power. 5 minutes until this borrowed family became truly hers. Clara Mary Bradley peered in, Daniel sleeping peacefully in her arms. "How are you holding up?" "Terrified," Clara admitted. "Happy, worried, everything all at once." Mary smiled knowingly. "Sounds about right for a wedding day, though I'd wager most brides don't have to worry about unwelcome visitors showing up." Sheriff Watson had positioned himself prominently outside the chapel, making it clear that trouble wouldn't be tolerated. Still, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas wouldn't give up so easily. "He loves you, you know," Mary said softly. "Ethan, I haven't seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you since Margaret passed. You're good for him. Good for Emily, too." "They're good for me," Clara replied. "I just hope—" "No hoping, just believing." Mary adjusted Daniel's blanket. "Now, let's get you married before your groom wears a hole in the chapel floor. Tom says he's been pacing like a caged cat." The chapel was simple, just rough-hewn benches and a plain wooden cross. But to Clara, it looked like a palace. Ethan stood at the altar with Reverend Harper, his Sunday suit freshly brushed, his weathered face clean-shaven. When he saw her, his expression softened with such tenderness that Clara felt her eyes sting with tears. The ceremony was brief by necessity. Reverend Harper, aware of the circumstances, moved through the vows with kind efficiency. Clara barely heard the words, too focused on Ethan's steady gaze, on Emily bouncing excitedly beside them, on Daniel gurgling softly in Mary's arms. "Do you, Ethan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." His voice was strong, certain. "Do you, Clara, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." The words came out whispered, but firm. "Then, by the power vested in me by God and the territory of Colorado, I pronounce you husband and wife." Ethan's kiss was gentle, appropriate for the setting, but Clara felt the promise in it of protection, partnership, and growing love. They'd barely stepped outside when Lucas appeared, his face mottled with rage. Sheriff Watson moved to intercept him, but Lucas held up a hand. "I'm not here to cause trouble, Sheriff, just to congratulate the happy couple." His smile was sharp as glass. "And to inform them that this sham marriage changes nothing. I've wired for a territorial judge, one who can't be swayed by small-town sentiment." "You do that," Ethan said calmly, his arm firm around Clara's waist. "Wire all the judges you want. Clara is my wife now. Daniel is my son by choice, and any man who threatens my family will answer to me." "Your family?" Lucas laughed, an ugly sound. "You mean my cast-offs, the woman I bedded and discarded? You're welcome to her, farmer, but the boy is mine." The crude words hit their mark. Clara felt Ethan tense, saw his free hand clench into a fist. But before he could move, Emily darted forward. "You're a bad man," she declared, glaring up at Lucas with fierce 7-year-old courage. "Daniel doesn't belong to you, he belongs with us." Lucas's face darkened. He took a step toward Emily, and suddenly the entire crowd shifted. Tom Bradley, Will Patterson, Ben Harper, and half a dozen other men formed a protective wall. "I'd think real careful about your next move, Mr." Sheriff Watson said quietly, his hand resting on his pistol. Lucas looked around at the hostile faces, his polished veneer cracking. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Enjoy your little victory. It won't last." After he stalked away, Clara found herself trembling. Ethan led her to the wagon, lifting her up gently before settling Emily between them. Mary handed up Daniel, and Clara clutched him close. "Home?" Ethan asked softly. "Home," Clara agreed. The ride back was quiet. Emily dozed against Clara's shoulder while Daniel slept in her arms. The burned barn stood as a stark reminder of Lucas's threat, but somehow it seemed less menacing in the bright morning light. "I should check the stock," Ethan said as they pulled up to the house. "Later," Clara said. "First, we have a wedding breakfast to eat. I made biscuits before we left." "Of course you did." His smile was fond. Can't have a wedding without Clara Cole's famous biscuits. Clara Cole. The name sent a thrill through her. She was truly Clara Cole now, not just in law, but in heart. Inside, the table was set with their best dishes, mismatched but clean. Clara had prepared what she could the night before: biscuits, apple preserve, fresh eggs from their hens. Simple fare, but Ethan tucked in like it was a feast. "Papa," Emily asked around a mouthful of biscuit, "does this mean Daniel is really my brother now?" "That's exactly what it means. Sweet pea." "Good. I always wanted a brother." She paused. "Though a sister would be nice too someday." Clara nearly choked on her coffee while Ethan turned an interesting shade of red. "Let's just focus on the family we have for now," he managed. That afternoon, as Emily napped and Daniel played on a blanket, Clara found herself alone with her new husband for the first time. The weight of the morning's events, the wedding, Lucas's threats suddenly crashed over her. "What have I done?" she whispered. "I've brought such trouble to your door." Ethan pulled her into his arms. "You've brought life back to this house. That's worth any trouble." "But Lucas is a bully who's used to buying his way. He'll find that doesn't work here." Ethan tipped her chin up. "Clara, do you trust me?" "Yes." "Then trust that I'll protect this family, our family." She searched his face, seeing the determination there, the quiet strength that had first drawn her to him. "I do trust you. It's just I'm not used to having someone to share the burden." "Well, get used to it. You're stuck with me now, Mrs. Cole." The kiss that followed was different from their wedding kiss, deeper, full of promise and growing passion. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Emily will be awake soon," Clara said, though she made no move to leave his arms. "And Daniel needs changing." "In a minute." She laughed softly. "Is this what married life is like, stealing moments between children's needs?" "If we're lucky." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Clara, I know this isn't the wedding night you dreamed of, with Lucas's threats hanging over us, with the children. Ethan Cole, are you blushing?" She traced his reddened cheek with wonder. "The man who faced down Lucas Tate is nervous about his wedding night." "It's been a long time," he admitted, "and you deserve better than rushed fumbling in the dark." Clara's heart melted. This good, decent man, worried about her comfort even now. "What I deserve," she said firmly, "is a husband who puts his family first, who protects us, provides for us, loves us. I already have that." "Still," she silenced him with a kiss. "We have time. Ethan, All the time in the world. Lucas can threaten all he wants, but he can't touch what we have." A cry from the bedroom interrupted them, Emily, waking from her nap. Then Daniel joined in, deciding he was hungry now. "The master's call," Ethan said wryly. The rest of the day passed in domestic rhythm. Neighbors stopped by despite the awkward circumstances, bringing small gifts, a jar of preserves, a length of fabric, a carved toy for Daniel. Each visitor made a point of calling Clara Mrs. Cole, a small but significant show of support. As evening fell, they maintained the illusion of normalcy. Bath time for the children, dinner, Emily's reading lesson. But Clara caught Ethan checking the windows, saw him clean his rifle with extra care. "You think he'll come tonight?" "No telling, but I'll be ready if he does." After the children were asleep, Emily in her bed, Daniel in his cradle, Clara found herself standing awkwardly in the main room. This was her wedding night, but nothing about it felt traditional. Ethan seemed equally uncertain. "I can still take the settee?" "No." Clara moved to him, taking his hands. "You're my husband. I'm your wife. Whatever comes tomorrow, tonight we're together." He studied her face. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." What followed was tender and careful. Two people learning each other in the dark, finding comfort and connection in the midst of uncertainty. When they finally lay quiet, Clara's head on Ethan's chest, she felt a peace she hadn't known in months. "No regrets?" he asked softly. "None. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Sleep, wife. Tomorrow will come soon enough." But sleep eluded Clara. She lay listening to Ethan's steady breathing, to the familiar night sounds of the prairie, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Lucas wouldn't give up. She knew him too well. He'd come at them another way, and another, until he got what he wanted or... "Stop thinking so loud," Ethan murmured. "I can hear the wheels turning." "Sorry, I just..." "Shh." He pulled her closer. "Whatever he tries, we'll face it, together. That's what the vows mean. Clara, for better or worse." "You got more worse than better today." "Did I?" His hand stroked her back gently. "I got a beautiful wife, a son. Emily got a mother, and Mary Bradley brought apple pie. Seems like mostly better to me." Despite her worry, Clara found herself smiling. "You're an optimist, Ethan Cole." "Realist," he corrected. "And the reality is, I'm holding the woman I love on our wedding night. Lucas Tate can go hang himself for all I care right now." The crude sentiment, so unlike Ethan's usual measured words, surprised a laugh out of her. "Why, Mr. Cole, such language. You bring out the worst in me, Mrs. Cole." "Only the worst." "Well," his voice dropped, husky with renewed interest. "Maybe not only the worst." This time their lovemaking was less careful, more confident. Clara discovered her quiet husband had depths of passion beneath his steady exterior. While Ethan seemed delighted by her responses, they came together like two halves of a whole, finding in each other not just physical pleasure but emotional connection. Afterward, Clara felt boneless, complete in a way she'd never experienced. Is it always like that? She wondered aloud. Ethan chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest. When it's right, yes. When you're with someone you love, someone you choose every day, yes. Then I choose you, Ethan Cole, today, tomorrow, always. And I choose you, Clara Cole, come hell or high water. Outside, a coyote howled at the moon, but wrapped in Ethan's arms, in their bed, in their home, Clara felt no fear. Let Lucas come. Let the whole world come. She had found her place, her people, her purpose. She had found her family, and that was worth fighting for. The courthouse in Redemption Creek had never seen such a crowd. Every bench was filled. People lined the walls, and more pressed against the windows outside. Word had spread quickly that Lucas Tate had indeed brought in a territorial judge from Denver, along with a fancy lawyer who wore a silk vest and spoke in polished Eastern tones. Clara sat between Ethan and Sheriff Watson at the defendant's table, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She'd dressed carefully in her best dress, the borrowed wedding dress, now properly hemmed and pinned her hair in a severe bun. Look respectable. Mary Bradley had advised, look like a proper wife and mother. Behind them, Emily fidgeted on Tom Bradley's lap while Mary held Daniel. The baby had been fussing all morning, seeming to sense the tension. All rise for the Honorable Judge William Harding. The bailiff called. Judge Harding looked exactly as Clara had feared, stern, proper, and clearly unimpressed with the frontier courtroom. His gaze swept over the crowd with visible disdain before settling on Lucas, who sat at the plaintiff's table looking smugly confident. "Be seated," Harding commanded. "We're here in the matter of Tate versus versus Cole regarding custody of the minor child, Daniel Mr. Whitmore. You may present your case." The silk-vested lawyer stood smoothly. "Your Honor, this case is quite simple. My client, Mr. Lucas Tate, is the biological father of the child in question, the defendant, Miss Monroe. Mrs. Cole." Ethan's lawyer, Samuel Morrison, interrupted. He was Judge Morrison's nephew, young but sharp. "The defendant," Whitmore continued with a thin smile, "enticed Mr. Tate into an inappropriate relationship, then fled with his child when he attempted to make proper arrangements for the boy's care." "Objection," Samuel shot up. "That's a blatant misrepresentation." "You'll have your turn, Mr. Morrison," Judge Harding said coldly. "Continue, Mr. Whitmore." Clara felt her heart sink. The judge was already biased. "My client is a man of substantial means," Whitmore continued. "He owns property, has business interests, and can provide young Daniel with education, opportunity, and a stable home. The defendant, on the other hand, is a woman of questionable moral character who has attached herself to a struggling rancher barely making ends meet." Ethan's hand found Clara's under the table, squeezing gently. "Furthermore," Whitmore added, "there's the matter of the recent arson at Mr. Cole's property. What kind of environment is that for a child? Violence, destruction, clearly. The boy would be safer with his father." "Your Honor," Samuel interjected, "everyone knows who was responsible for that fire." "Do they?" Whitmore asked silkily. "Do you have proof, counselor, or just frontier speculation?" Judge Harding raised a hand. "I'll hear from the plaintiff directly. Mr. Tate, please take the stand." Lucas moved to the witness chair with practiced ease, under Whitmore's gentle questioning. He painted himself as a concerned father, heartbroken by Clara's betrayal and desperate to provide for his son. "I offered to marry her," Lucas said, managing to look pained, "despite the circumstances of our relationship, but she refused, choosing instead to run off and deny me my parental rights." "That's a lie," Clara burst out before she could stop herself. "Mrs. Cole." Judge Harding's gavel cracked down. "You will remain silent or be removed from this courtroom." "Please, Your Honor." Lucas continued, the picture of wounded dignity. "I understand her emotional state. Women in her condition often become irrational. That's why young Daniel needs a father's steady influence." Clara bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. Beside her, Ethan had gone rigid with anger. When Samuel cross-examined, Lucas deflected every question with smooth denials and calculated charm. No, he hadn't abandoned Clara. She'd left of her own accord. No, he knew nothing about the barn fire, such a tragedy. Yes, he'd made mistakes. But what man hadn't? He only wanted what was best for his son. "Your witness, Mr. Morrison," Judge Harding said when Lucas finally stepped down. Samuel called Clara to the stand. She walked on unsteady legs, acutely aware of every eye in the room. Mrs. Cole," Samuel began gently. "Please tell the court about your relationship with Mr. Tate." Clara lifted her chin. "Lucas Tate pursued me for months. He promised marriage, a home, a future together. I believed him." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "When I told him about Daniel, he laughed, said I was a fool to think he'd marry beneath his station. He offered to keep you as his mistress. Yes, when I refused, he said he'd take the baby once it was born, that no court would give a child to an unwed mother over a respectable family." "So you fled?" "I protected my child." Clara's voice grew stronger. "I came west, seeking a new life, somewhere Daniel and I could live without shame or fear." "And you found that with Mr. Cole?" Clara's eyes found Ethan's. "I found more than I ever dreamed. A good man who took us in without question. A daughter who needed a mother, a home, a family." "Your Honor," Whitmore interrupted. "This is all very touching, but hardly relevant." "I'll determine relevance." "Counselor," Judge Harding said, though his tone suggested he agreed. Samuel continued. "Mrs. Cole, has Mr. Tate provided any support for Daniel, any money, supplies, letters asking after his welfare?" "Nothing, not until he showed up here making threats." "Threats?" "He burned our barn." "Objection," Whitmore jumped up. "There's no proof." "Sustained." Judge Harding glared at Clara. "The witness will stick to facts, not speculation." Clara felt tears of frustration building, but forced them back. She would not cry. Not here, not in front of Lucas. The cross-examination was brutal. Whitmore picked apart every aspect of her character, her choices, her relationship with Ethan. By the time she was dismissed, Clara felt flayed raw. Ethan testified next, his weathered dignity a stark contrast to Lucas's polished performance. He spoke simply about taking Clara in, about watching her with the children, about choosing to make her his wife. "I've buried one family," he said quietly. "I know what loss looks like. When Clara came to us, she brought life back to our home. Daniel isn't mine by blood, but he's mine by choice. That matters more than any accident of birth." "How noble," Whitmore said with false admiration. "Tell me, Mr. Cole, how do you plan to provide for this expanded family? Your barn was recently destroyed. Was it not you have debts, a struggling ranch?" "I have 2 hands and a strong back," Ethan replied. "My neighbors have already pledged to help rebuild. We take care of our own out here." Touching. But can frontier solidarity provide young Daniel with proper education? Culture, the advantages his father can offer. It can provide him with love, with parents who want him, with a sister who adores him. Ethan's voice hardened. Things money can't buy. When the testimony concluded, Judge Harding called a brief recess. Clara watched Lucas conferring with his lawyer, saw his confident smile, and felt hope slipping away. Judge's already made up his mind. Samuel Morrison said quietly, "I'm sorry, Ethan, we knew it was a long shot with an outside judge." "It's not over," Ethan said firmly. But Clara heard the doubt beneath. When court reconvened, something unexpected happened. Emily broke free from Tom Bradley and ran to the front of the room. "Please, Mr. Judge," she cried out. "Please don't take Daniel away." "Someone control that child," Judge Harding snapped. But Emily had already climbed onto the witness chair, her small face fierce with determination. "Daniel's my brother. Mama Clara is my mama. That bad man can't have them." "Emily, sweetheart." Clara started forward, but Ethan caught her arm. "Wait," he whispered. The entire courtroom had gone silent, watching the 7-year-old face down the imposing judge. "You're Emily Cole?" Judge Harding asked, his voice slightly less harsh. "Yes, sir. And I got something to say." This is highly irregular. Please, Your Honor. Samuel Morrison interjected. The child is directly affected by this decision. Perhaps we should hear her. Judge Harding looked like he'd swallowed something sour, but nodded curtly. Emily took a deep breath. My first mama went to heaven when I was little. Papa was so sad, and I was sad, and our house was quiet all the time. Then Mama Clara came with Daniel, and everything got better. She makes biscuits and tells stories and holds me when I have bad dreams. Clara pressed her hand to her mouth, tears flowing freely now. That man, Emily pointed at Lucas with childish disdain. He made Mama Clara cry. He burned our barn. He wants to steal Daniel just to be mean, but Daniel belongs with us. He's my brother, and I won't let anyone take him. She turned back to the judge, her lower lip trembling but her voice strong. Please, Mr. Judge, don't you got a family? Don't you know how important it is to keep families together? The courtroom was utterly still. Even Lucas seemed momentarily struck silent by the child's plea. Judge Harding cleared his throat. Young lady, I understand you're upset, but the law... The law should protect families, Emily interrupted, showing her father's stubborn streak. Papa says the law is supposed to be fair. Is it fair to take a baby from his mama? Is it fair to give him to someone who don't even love him? Emily, the judge said more gently, sometimes what seems unfair is actually... He was cut off by a commotion at the back of the room. The doors burst open and a woman rushed in, young, pretty, and visibly distraught. Stop! She cried out. Stop this trial! Lucas went white. Melissa, what are you doing here? The woman Melissa marched to the front of the room. I'm doing what I should have done months ago. She turned to Judge Harding. Your Honor, I have information relevant to this case. This is highly irregular, Whitmore began. Let her speak, Judge Harding commanded, apparently deciding the trial couldn't get any more chaotic. Melissa lifted her chin in a gesture eerily similar to Clara's. My name is Melissa Hartley. I was Lucas Tate's fiancée, until I discovered he had a child with another woman. The courtroom exploded in whispers. Lucas half rose from his chair. Melissa, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Her voice cut like glass. You told me Clara Monroe was a fortune hunter who'd tricked you, that she'd stolen your child out of greed. I believed you. She looked at Clara with genuine remorse. I'm sorry. I know better now. Your Honor, Whitmore tried again. This woman's testimony is hardly... I have letters, Melissa announced. Letters from Lucas, discussing how he planned to take the child and have him raised by servants while he maintained his bachelor lifestyle, how a son would be useful for his political ambitions. She pulled a packet from her bag. He never wanted Daniel. He wanted a possession. Judge Harding's expression had shifted from impatience to interest. May I see these letters? As Melissa handed them over, she added quietly, There's more. The night before Clara left Missouri, Lucas, he tried to force himself on her. She fought him off and fled. He's been hunting her ever since, not out of fatherly love, but because he can't stand that she defied him. That's a lie, Lucas erupted. Is it? Melissa turned on him. Just like it was a lie when you swore you loved me, when you promised we'd marry next spring. I followed you here. Lucas, I saw what you did to their barn. I heard you bragging to your associates about how you'd destroy them. Judge Harding held up a hand for silence, his eyes scanning the letters. The courtroom held its breath. Finally, he looked up. Mr. Tate, these letters are quite damning. Your own words paint a very different picture than your testimony. Those were taken out of context. Silence. The gavel cracked down. I've heard enough. Judge Harding surveyed the courtroom, Clara clinging to Ethan's hand. Emily still perched defiantly in the witness chair, Daniel fussing in Mary Bradley's arms. The crowd of townspeople ready to defend their own. Mr. Tate, he began. You came before this court claiming to be a wronged father seeking his son. What I see instead is a man who abandoned a woman he'd compromised, threatened her when she refused to be kept as his mistress, and pursued her not out of love, but out of wounded pride. He turned to Clara. Mrs. Cole, while your initial situation was irregular, you've clearly provided a loving home for your son. You've married a respectable man willing to raise another's child as his own. That speaks to character. Your Honor, Whitmore began desperately. My ruling stands. Custody of Daniel remains with his mother, Mrs. Clara Cole. Mr. Tate, you are ordered to stay away from the Cole family. Any violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. The courtroom erupted. Lucas shot to his feet, his face contorted with rage. You can't do this. He's my son, my blood. Blood doesn't make a father. Judge Harding said coldly. Love does. Commitment does. Mr. Cole understands that. You, apparently, do not. This isn't over, Lucas snarled. I'll appeal out. Sheriff Watson stepped forward. I think it's time you left town, Mr. Tate, before something unfortunate happens. For a moment, violence hung in the air. Then Melissa spoke quietly. It's over. Lucas, I've already spoken to your father. He knows everything. He's cutting you off unless you leave the Coles alone. Lucas's face went from red to white. Without his father's money, he was nothing. He looked around the hostile courtroom. At Clara safe in Ethan's arms. At Daniel reaching for his mother. At Emily glaring at him with childish triumph. This isn't over, he repeated. But the words lacked conviction. He stormed out, Whitmore scurrying after him. Melissa approached Clara hesitantly. I'm so sorry. If I'd known the truth. Clara stood, still clutching Ethan's hand. You spoke up when it mattered. That's what counts. He won't bother you again, Melissa said. I'll make sure of it. His father listens to me. She managed a sad smile. Turns out Lucas wasn't the only one with political ambitions. His father won't risk scandal. As Melissa left, Emily launched herself from the witness chair into Clara's arms. We won Daniel stays. Yes, sweetheart. Clara laughed through her tears. He stays. Judge Harding cleared his throat. If I might have a word, Mr. and Mrs. Cole. They approached the bench warily. The judge's stern expression had softened slightly. That daughter of yours, he said quietly, reminds me of my own at that age, fierce as a wildcat when protecting what they love. He paused. I came here expecting a simple case of rights and wrongs. Instead, I found a real family. Take care of them. Mr. Cole. Every day of my life. Ethan promised. As they left the courthouse, the townspeople surged around them. Hands clapped Ethan's back, women hugged Clara, and everyone wanted to peek at Daniel, who seemed bemused by all the attention. Tom Bradley grinned widely. Still planning that barn-raising Saturday? Reckon we'll have even more help now. Celebration supper at our place tonight, Mary added. The whole town's invited. As the crowd dispersed, Clara found herself standing with her family on the courthouse steps. Ethan held Emily's hand while Clara cradled Daniel. They looked, she realized, like a real family, because they were... It's over, she breathed. Really over. No, Ethan corrected gently. It's just beginning. Our life, our family, our future, it's all just beginning. Emily tugged on Clara's skirt. Mama, can we go home now? Daniel's hungry, and I want to show him the new kittens in the barn, oh. Her face fell. We don't got a barn no more. We'll build a new one, Ethan promised. Better than before, and Daniel can help when he's bigger. And maybe by then, he'll have that sister I asked for, Emily added hopefully. Clara blushed while Ethan coughed. One thing at a time, sweet pea. As they walked to their wagon, Clara felt the last weight lift from her shoulders. Lucas was gone. The law had protected them. The town had embraced them. She was Clara Cole, wife, mother, member of this community. The running was over. She was home. "Thank you," she whispered to Ethan as he helped her into the wagon. For what? For fighting for us, for believing in us, for making us a family. He cupped her face gently. "Thank you for letting me, for bringing love back to my life, for giving me a son and making Emily whole again." "Papa, Mama, stop being mushy," Emily commanded. "We got celebrating to do." They laughed, climbing into the wagon as a family. As Ethan drove them home, Clara looked back at the courthouse one last time. Through the window, she could see Judge Harding watching them leave. He raised his hand in a small salute. Sometimes, Clara thought as she settled Daniel more comfortably in her arms, justice did prevail. Sometimes the good people won. Sometimes love really did conquer all. And sometimes a woman running from her past could find her future in the most unexpected place, in the arms of a grieving widower, in the heart of a motherless child, in a small frontier town that knew the meaning of family. As their wagon rolled toward home, toward their neighbors, toward their future, Clara Cole smiled. She'd been sent to Ethan as a fading bride, broken and desperate. But that last night's kiss, not of death but of new life, had indeed made them love beyond eternity. They were home. They were family. They were forever. The thunder of hoofbeats woke Clara from uneasy sleep. She'd been restless all week, unable to shake the feeling that Lucas's threat, "This isn't over," had been more than wounded pride talking. Now, as boots stomped across the porch at 2 a.m, her worst fears materialized. "Ethan," she shook her husband awake as the door exploded inward. 3 men burst in, bandanas covering their faces. But Clara recognized Lucas's eyes above the cloth, cold and triumphant. Ethan rolled from bed, reaching for his rifle, but one of the men clubbed him with a pistol butt. He went down hard, blood streaming from his temple. "Papa!" Emily's terrified scream pierced the night. "Shut that brat up!" Lucas snarled, his cultured voice unmistakable despite the mask. "Get the baby!" "No!" Clara threw herself in front of Daniel's cradle, but rough hands seized her arms. She fought wildly, nails raking, feet kicking, until someone backhanded her across the face. Stars exploded in her vision. Mama Clara Emily had run from her room, her little nightgown fluttering. She launched herself at the man holding Clara, pounding with tiny fists. "Let her go! Let her go!" "Get this wildcat off me," the man growled. Lucas grabbed Emily by the hair, yanking her back. The child cried out in pain and fear. "Don't you touch her!" Ethan struggled to rise, blood running into his eyes. "I'll kill you!" Another blow sent him sprawling. Clara heard the sickening thud as his head hit the floor. This time, he didn't move. "Ethan!" Clara's anguish tore from her throat. "Please, Lucas, take me, leave the children." "You?" Lucas laughed coldly. "I don't want you. I never wanted you. But the boy is mine, and I'll not have him raised by frontier trash." He gestured to his men. "Take the baby. If the woman gives trouble, shoot her." "And the girl?" one asked. Lucas glanced dismissively at Emily, who was sobbing, trying to crawl to Ethan's still form. "Leave her. She can tell everyone how her precious new family failed to protect them." The man holding Clara shoved her aside. She stumbled, catching herself on the table as he reached for Daniel's cradle. The baby, startled awake, began to wail. "Please," Clara begged, her mother's heart breaking. "Please don't take him. I'll do anything." "Should have thought of that before you ran." Lucas pulled off his bandana, no longer caring about being identified. His handsome face was ugly with vindication. "Judge Harding might have ruled against me, but there's more than one kind of justice. My son won't grow up in this hovel." Clara's desperation crystallized into rage. As the man lifted Daniel from his cradle, she grabbed the heavy iron skillet from the stove and swung with all her strength. It connected with a satisfying clang, and the man dropped like a stone. Daniel tumbling safely back into his blankets. "Why you—" Another attacker lunged for her. The cottage erupted into chaos. Clara fought like a mountain cat, using every household item as a weapon, hot coffee flung in faces, chairs thrown, her grandmother's teachings about pressure points put to vicious use. Emily, following her example, bit the hand of anyone who came near. But they were outnumbered. Lucas himself grabbed Clara by the throat, slamming her against the wall. "Enough, you want to die in front of the girl." Through dimming vision, Clara saw Emily crouched over Ethan, trying to wake him. Saw Daniel screaming in his cradle. Saw their little home, their sanctuary, destroyed by violence. Then she heard it. Gunfire. Not from inside, but getting closer. Hoofbeats. Lots of them.
"Boss," one of Lucas's men peered out the window. "Riders coming, looks like half the town." Lucas cursed vilely. In the distance, Clara heard Tom Bradley's voice shouting, "Cole's place! Hurry!" "How?" Lucas began. Then his eyes fell on Emily. The little girl had Ethan's hunting horn, the one he used to signal emergencies. She'd managed to blow it before the men noticed. "You little witch!"
Lucas snarled, starting toward her. Clara didn't think. She just moved, throwing herself between Lucas and Emily. The bullet meant for her daughter took her in the shoulder, spinning her around. Pain exploded through her body as she fell. "Mama!" Emily screamed. The door burst open again, but this time it was Sheriff Watson, Tom Bradley, and a dozen armed townsmen. They took in the scene, Ethan unconscious and bleeding. Clara shot, Emily sobbing, and their faces turned murderous. "Drop your weapons," Watson commanded. Now, Lucas's remaining conscious accomplice immediately complied, but Lucas himself backed toward Daniel's cradle, pulling a derringer from his coat. "Stay back," he warned. "I'm taking my son." "Like hell you are." The voice was Ethan's, rough but determined. He'd managed to pull himself up, leaning heavily on the wall. Blood matted his hair, but his eyes were clear and deadly. "Put the gun down. Tate, it's over." "You're in no position." Ethan moved faster than anyone expected from an injured man. His fist connected with Lucas's jaw, sending him reeling. The derringer flew from his hand. Before Lucas could recover, Ethan had him on the ground, hands around his throat. "You shot my wife," Ethan growled. "You threatened my children. Give me one reason not to end you here." "Ethan?" Clara's voice was weak but clear. "Don't. You're better than him." For a moment, violence crackled in the air. Then Ethan released Lucas, shoving him toward Sheriff Watson. "Get him out of my sight before I change my mind." As Watson hauled Lucas away, Tom Bradley knelt beside Clara, pressing his shirt to her bleeding shoulder. "Doc Morrison's coming. Hang on. Clara." "The children," she whispered. "They're safe." Mary Bradley had arrived, gathering both Emily and Daniel into her arms. "You saved them." Ethan crawled to Clara's side, cradling her head in his lap. "Don't you dare leave me," he said fiercely. "You hear me? Clara Cole, you don't get to make me love you and then leave." She managed a weak smile. "Wouldn't dream of it. Too stubborn." Doc Morrison arrived in a flurry of medical efficiency. The bullet had passed through cleanly, missing anything vital. "She'll be fine," he announced after cleaning and bandaging the wound. "Lost some blood. Needs rest, but our Clara's tougher than she looks." "Told you," Clara murmured, then promptly fainted. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows. She was in their bed, her shoulder heavily bandaged. Ethan sat beside her, looking haggard but relieved. His own head was wrapped in white cloth. "The children?" she asked immediately. "Safe. Emily's with Mary, telling everyone how her mama fought off bad men with a skillet." His voice broke slightly. "She's calling you her hero." "Where's Daniel?" Ethan lifted the baby from a cradle beside the bed. "Right here. Wouldn't settle anywhere else. Think he missed his mama." Clara reached out with her good arm, tears flowing as Daniel gurgled happily at her. Lucas. In jail, Watson's holding him for attempted kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder. That territorial judge came back when he heard what happened. Seems he doesn't take kindly to people ignoring his rulings. Ethan's smile was grim. Lucas is looking at hard labor. Maybe worse. His father's washed his hands of him completely. It's really over. It's over. Ethan settled Daniel in the crook of her good arm, then carefully embraced them both. Though you scared 10 years off my life. When I saw him shoot you, I couldn't let him hurt Emily. I know. That's who you are. Who we love. He kissed her forehead gently. My brave, foolish, wonderful wife. The door creaked open. Emily peered in, her face lighting up when she saw Clara awake. Mama, you're better. Come here, sweetheart. Emily scrambled onto the bed carefully, mindful of Clara's injury. I was so scared, but then you hit that bad man with the pan, and it was like David and Goliath that Reverend Harper talks about. Clara laughed, then winced as it jarred her shoulder. Well, even Mama Claras have to fight giants sometimes. Will they come back? No, Ethan said firmly. Never again, I promise. Over the next days, the story spread throughout the territory. The woman who'd fought off kidnappers with a skillet, the little girl who'd summoned help with a hunting horn, the town that had ridden to the rescue in the dead of night. Visitors came in droves, bringing food, offers of help, and sincere apologies from those who'd once whispered about Clara. Even Abigail Thornton appeared, stiff with embarrassment. I misjudged you, she said formally. A mother who'd take a bullet for a child that isn't even hers by blood. Well, that says everything about character, doesn't it? Clara accepted the olive branch gracefully, though Emily later declared Mrs. Thornton still looked like she'd been sucking lemons. The barn raising, postponed due to Clara's injury, became a celebration of survival. It seemed the whole territory turned out, as Clara watched from a chair. Still healing, men swarmed over the structure like ants, walls rising as if by magic. Women organized food, children played, and music filled the air. It's beautiful, Clara said as the frame took shape. It's just a barn, Ethan replied. But his eyes were soft as he watched their community, their family come together. No, Clara corrected. It's proof that good people help each other, that love builds stronger than hate destroys, that we belong here. Sheriff Watson approached, looking pleased. Thought you'd want to know Lucas Tate was sentenced this morning. 15 years hard labor. He won't be bothering anyone for a long time. Clara felt the last knot of fear dissolve. Daniel gurgled in her arms, reaching for a butterfly. Emily danced with the other children, her laughter bright as sunshine. Ethan's hand rested warm on her good shoulder. Thank you, she told Watson, for everything. Thank you, he countered. You showed this town what real courage looks like, what real family looks like. He tipped his hat. Ma'am, as the sun set over the newly raised barn, Tom Bradley called for quiet. Before we eat, I think we need to acknowledge something. Ethan, Clara, come on up here. Reluctantly, they made their way to the front, Clara leaning on Ethan's arm, Emily skipping beside them with Daniel in her careful hold. Tom raised his cup. To the Coles, who showed us that family isn't about blood or proper beginnings, but about choosing each other every day, about fighting for each other, about love that won't quit. To the Coles, the crowd echoed. But Tom wasn't done. And to Clara especially, who came to us as a stranger and became our own, who proved that courage comes in all forms, including skillets. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Clara felt her cheeks burn, but Ethan squeezed her hand. Speech, someone called. Clara shook her head, but Emily piped up. My mama's brave and beautiful and makes the best biscuits in Colorado, and she saved us 'cause that's what mamas do. More laughter, warm and affectionate. Clara found her voice. Thank you, all of you, for giving us a home, for being our family, for showing us that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the one you're born to. Hear, hear, the crowd cheered. As the celebration continued around them, Ethan pulled Clara aside, into the quiet of the new barn. It smelled of fresh wood and possibility. How's the shoulder? Sore but healing, like everything else. She looked up at him. We survived, Ethan, all of us. Because of you, your courage, your love. His voice roughened. When I thought I might lose you. But you didn't. She reached up to touch his face. We're here. We're whole. We're family. He kissed her then, careful of her injury but full of promise. When they broke apart, Emily's voice drifted to them, Mama, Papa, come see the fiddlers starting. They emerged to find their daughter teaching Daniel to clap along to the music, the baby laughing with delight. Their neighbors smiled and made room for them in the circle. You know, Clara said softly, Lucas was wrong about one thing. What's that? He said I was a fading bride, but I wasn't fading, I was just waiting to find where I belonged, waiting to find you. Ethan pulled her close. And that last kiss in the cottage, when you thought you were protecting Emily, that wasn't a goodbye. It was a promise. What promise? That our love is stronger than anything, stronger than fear, stronger than the past, stronger than any force that tries to tear us apart. He smiled. Love beyond eternity, just like you said. Clara leaned into his warmth, watching their children play, their community celebrate, their new barn stand proud against the Colorado sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, frontier life always did. But tonight, they were surrounded by love, by chosen family, by hope as solid as fresh-built walls. She'd run so far, been through so much, but here, in Ethan's arms, with their children safe and their future bright, Clara Cole was finally, truly home. The fading bride had become a fierce wife, a protective mother, a cherished member of the community. And that last night's kiss, not of death, but of defiance, not of ending, but of beginning, had indeed made them love beyond eternity. The fight was over. The family was safe. And their story, Clara knew, was just beginning. 5 years had passed since that violent night, and the Cole Ranch bore little resemblance to the struggling homestead it once was. The new barn stood proud and strong, accompanied now by expanded corrals and a larger house with a proper second story. Fruit trees Clara had planted were beginning to bear, and Emily's garden flourished beside the kitchen door. Clara stood on the porch, one hand resting on her swollen belly, watching Ethan teach Daniel how to rope. At 5, the boy was all knees and elbows, his blonde hair bleached almost white by the sun. But his determination, that was pure Cole stubbornness, learned rather than inherited. Keep your wrist loose, son. Ethan coached patiently. Let the rope do the work. Like this, Papa? Daniel's tongue poked out in concentration as he swung again, this time managing to snag the practice post. That's it, Emily. Did you see your brother got it? Emily looked up from where she sat reading to 2-year-old Sarah, their miracle child born 3 years after Clara's injury. Good job. Danny, soon you'll be as good as Papa. Better, Daniel declared with 5-year-old confidence. Clara smiled, her heart full. They'd built this, not just the ranch, but the family, the life, the love that filled every corner of their home. The woman who'd arrived in a dust storm, desperate and alone, seemed like someone from another lifetime. Mama, story, Sarah demanded, patting Emily's book with chubby hands. In a minute, sweet pea, Emily said, sounding remarkably like her father. At 12, she was becoming a young lady, though she still preferred riding to sewing, much to Abigail Thornton's dismay during their weekly social calls. Clara, Mary Bradley's voice called from the road. You decent for visitors? Always for you. Mary, Clara waved as the Bradley wagon pulled up, disgorging not just Tom and Mary, but their 3 boys, and surprise! A familiar figure climbed down, and Clara gasped. Melissa. Melissa Hartley. Now Melissa Patterson. Having married a railroad engineer, beamed as she hurried forward. I told you I'd visit when the rail line came through. The women embraced carefully, mindful of Clara's condition. Over the years, they'd exchanged letters, an unlikely friendship born from that dramatic day in court. You look wonderful, Melissa said warmly. Pregnancy agrees with you. Ethan says I look like I swallowed a watermelon. Clara laughed. But I feel wonderful. Tired, but wonderful. When are you due? Doc Morrison says another month, maybe less. Clara rubbed her belly as the baby kicked. This one's eager to join the chaos. Speaking of chaos, boys, Mary called sharply as her sons joined Daniel in what was becoming a dirt-clod war. Mind your manners. Ethan strode over, dusty but grinning. Melissa, good to see you. How's married life treating you? Can't complain. Robert's working on the Mountain Pass section. Says they'll have rails to Denver within 2 years. She paused. I have news. Actually, about Lucas. The name still had the power to make Clara tense, though its hold had weakened with time. What about him? Ethan asked, his arm coming protectively around Clara. He's dead. Melissa's voice was matter-of-fact. Prison fever, 3 months ago. His father didn't even claim the body. Clara waited for some feeling relief, vindication, something. Instead, she felt only a distant pity. May God have mercy on his soul. More than he showed others, Ethan said grimly, then softened. But you're right. It's done now. Truly done. Emily, who'd been listening with 12-year-old curiosity, asked, Does that mean Daniel doesn't have to worry about him anymore? Daniel never had to worry, Clara said firmly. He has a papa who chose him, who loves him. That's all that matters. As if summoned, Daniel ran over, covered in dust but beaming. Mama, I roped the post 3 times. Papa says I'm a natural. Of course you are. Clara ruffled his hair. You're a Cole, aren't you? The best Cole, Sarah announced, toddling over to wrap her arms around Daniel's knees. My brother. That evening, they held an impromptu celebration. The Bradleys stayed for dinner, joined by Sheriff Watson, now Mayor Watson, Doc Morrison, and several other neighbors. Clara's kitchen overflowed with helpers and laughter as they prepared a feast. Remember when you first came here? Mary reminisced, peeling potatoes. So thin and scared, but proud. I told Tom that night. That woman's got steel in her spine. I was terrified, Clara admitted. But Ethan, he made me feel safe. For the first time in so long, I felt safe. And now look at you, mistress of the finest ranch in the county, mother of 3 with another coming, and maker of the best biscuits in Colorado. Those biscuits started everything. Emily chimed in, carrying plates. If Mama hadn't made them that first morning, Papa might not have fallen in love. The women laughed. Is that how it happened? Melissa teased. Among other things, Clara said, thinking of those early days, the fear, the hope, the growing trust that had bloomed into love. Outside, the men had gathered on the porch, passing around Tom's flask of whiskey and telling tall tales. Children ran through the yard, playing tag in the fading light. It was a scene Clara had dreamed of but never believed possible. You built something good here, Melissa said softly, following her gaze. Something worth fighting for. We all built it, Clara corrected. That's what family does. After the guests left and the children were abed, Clara and Ethan sat on their porch, watching stars emerge in the vast Colorado sky. The rocking chair creaked gently as Ethan pushed it with his foot. Clara nestled against his side. Tired, he asked. The good kind. She placed his hand on her belly. Feel that this one's going to be a fighter. Like the mama. Like both parents. She turned to study his face. Still weathered, but gentler now. Laugh lines prominent. Do you ever think about how different life might have been? Sometimes, he admitted. If Margaret hadn't died, if you hadn't come, if we'd made different choices. He pressed a kiss to her temple. But I wouldn't change it. Any of it, even the hard parts. Even Lucas, even that night. Especially that night. It showed me what we had was worth any fight. It showed the children that family protects family. It brought the town together in a way nothing else could have. Clara nodded slowly. I used to think I was running to something when I came west. Now I know I was running from... It wasn't until I stopped running that I found home. Speaking of home... Ethan shifted, reaching into his pocket. I have something for you. He pulled out a small wooden box, worn smooth with age. Inside, on faded velvet, lay 2 rings, one masculine and heavy, one delicate with a small stone. These were my parents, he explained. I've been waiting for the right time. Figured our 5th anniversary was as good as any. Ethan? Clara's eyes misted. Their wedding had been so rushed. There'd been no rings, just borrowed bands from the Reverend. I know we did things backwards, he continued. Married for protection before love, though I think I loved you even then. But now... He slipped the delicate ring onto her finger. Now I want you to have this, a Cole family ring for a Cole family woman. Clara couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. After all these years, he still found ways to surprise her, to make her feel cherished. I love you, she managed finally. More than that first day, more than yesterday, but not as much as I will tomorrow. Poetry now, he teased gently. Emily's education is rubbing off. Hush, she laughed, then gasped. Oh! What's wrong? Ethan was instantly alert. Nothing's wrong, but I think... Another wave of pressure. I think this baby heard us talking about fighting and decided to prove the point. Now, but Doc Morrison said, babies keep their own time. Clara gripped his hand as another contraction rolled through. You better fetch Mary. And Doc Morrison. What followed was controlled chaos. Ethan rode hard for town, while Emily, awakened by the commotion, helped Clara to bed and kept the younger children calm. Mary Bradley arrived first, taking charge with the efficiency of a woman who'd birthed 3 sons. Men. She tutted as they heard Ethan pacing outside. Always think the world's ending. Clara, you've done this before. You know what to do. Clara nodded. Breathing through the intensifying pains, this labor was faster than Sarah's had been, more urgent, between contractions. She could hear Daniel asking Ethan endless questions and Sarah demanding to see Mama. Keep them out there, Clara panted. Don't want to frighten them? Emily's got them corralled, Mary assured her. That girl's going to make a fine mother herself someday. Doc Morrison arrived just as Clara felt the overwhelming urge to push. Cutting it close, aren't we? He said cheerfully. Let's see what we have here. What they had, after 20 minutes of intense effort, was a squalling, healthy boy with a shock of dark hair and his father's stubborn chin. Another son. Doc Morrison announced, cleaning the baby with practiced hands. And listening to those lungs, he's got opinions about arriving early. Clara laughed weakly, reaching for her baby. The moment he was in her arms, the infant settled, blinking up at her with unfocused eyes. Ethan, she called, come meet your son. Ethan burst in like he'd been shot from a cannon, the other children trailing behind despite Mary's attempts to stop them. Clara, are you? Is he? We're perfect. She shifted the baby so he could see. Say hello to your son. Ethan's face transformed with wonder as he touched the baby's tiny fist. He's beautiful. Another boy. Can we see? Daniel pressed close. Emily lifting Sarah for a better view. Gentle, Clara warned, but she needn't have worried. The children stared at their new sibling with fascination. He's so small, Daniel whispered. Was I that small? Smaller, Clara told him. But look how big and strong you are now. What's his name? Emily asked practically. Clara and Ethan exchanged glances. They'd discussed names but hadn't settled. I was thinking. Clara began hesitantly. Thomas, after Tom Bradley, who's been such a friend, and Samuel for... She looked at Ethan questioningly. For his brother in heaven. Ethan finished, his voice rough. Thomas Samuel Cole. It's perfect. Sarah reached out to pat the baby's head with surprising gentleness. Tom, she declared, which made everyone laugh. I don't think he wants to be called Tom. Emily said, Too bad Tom, Sarah was delighted with herself. As the house settled into quiet, Doc Morrison and Mary, gone home with promises to check in tomorrow. Children finally asleep. Clara found herself alone with Ethan and baby Thomas. The lamp cast a warm glow over their bed as Thomas nursed contentedly. 4 children. Ethan marveled. When I was alone with Emily, I never imagined. They sent him a fading bride, Clara quoted softly, remembering her grandmother's words from so long ago. But I wasn't fading. Ethan, I was waiting to bloom, waiting for you to help me grow. We helped each other, he corrected. You brought me back to life too. Thomas finished nursing and yawned enormously for such a tiny person. Clara settled him between them, where he could feel both parents' warmth. Look what we built, she whispered. From ashes and storms and fear, we built this. A family, Ethan agreed. A home, a life worth living. And love, Clara added. Love beyond eternity, just like we promised. Outside, a coyote called to its mate across the prairie, answered by another in the distance. But inside the Cole house, all was warmth and peace. 4 children slept safely, dreaming whatever dreams children dream when they know they're loved. Their parents kept quiet vigil over the newest addition, hands linked across his tiny form. The woman who'd arrived in a dust storm was gone, transformed into something stronger wife, mother, pillar of the community. The man who'd lost everything had gained more than he'd ever dreamed possible. Together, they'd faced down threats, rebuilt from destruction, and created a family bound not just by blood but by choice, sacrifice, and endless love. Thank you, Clara whispered into the darkness. For what? For opening your door that night, for seeing past my circumstances, for fighting for us, for choosing us every day since. Thank you, Ethan returned. For knocking, for staying, for saving us all with your courage, for making us whole. Baby Thomas stirred, making small newborn sounds. Somewhere in the house. A floorboard creaked, probably Daniel sneaking to peek at his new brother again. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new moments to treasure. The ranch would continue to grow, the children would flourish, and their love would deepen with each passing season. But tonight, in this perfect moment, the Cole family was complete. The fading bride had become the flowering heart of a home, her last kiss not of death but of life. Not of ending but of eternal beginning had indeed made them love beyond eternity. And in the vast Colorado night, under stars that had witnessed their whole journey, their story continued a testament to the power of love, family, and the courage to build something beautiful from the ashes of the past. The beginning. Thank you so much for listening to this story of love, courage, and family in the Old West. If you've made it this far, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below, and let's connect over our shared love of these frontier tales. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Wild West Night, give this video a like, and hit that hype button to help more people discover these emotional journeys of the American frontier. Your support helps me bring more of these authentic Western love stories to life. Until next time, partners, keep riding toward your own sunset.